Then was Mukunda Das. He had Mukunda Das had three brothers, Narahari Sakar, Mukunda Das Sakar, and Madhava Sakar. So Mukunda, he was a Ayurvedic doctor, Kaviraj. And he was very well known, and he used to treat the king also, the Nawab. So once the Nawab was sitting on a raised platform, like a stage, and Mukunda was treating him, making some prescription. So at that time, they were fanning the Nawab with a peacock feather fan. And Mukunda, seeing the peacock feathers in the fan, began to think of Krishna, and he went into ecstasy. And due to that ecstasy, he fainted and fell off the stage. So the king was very concerned, and he rushed down to see if the Mukunda was hurt. So Mukunda said, no, I'm okay. In order to cover what actually happened, he explained to the king that he suffers from epileptic attacks. So he had an epileptic attack, he said. But the king could understand that there was something else. So this same Mukunda, he had a son named Raghunandana. And when Raghunandana was a young boy, one day Mukunda told him that, you see, I have to go for some work. So you make the offering to our house deity, Gopinath, while I'm gone. So, and make sure that you do the offering. So he said, okay. So the wife of Mukunda made the bhoga. You know, it's Bengal, right? So the bhoga is rice, a lot of rice, and some sabji, one sak, right? Some dal. So Raghunandana brought the bhoga before Gopinath, and after some time, the bhoga was still there, and Raghunandana was saying, Gopinath, you know, my father, he told me to feed you, but you're not eating. Please, you eat. Nothing happened. So then the boy became so upset, he began to cry. That Gopinath, he's not eating. So then the deity ate, and he finished everything. Ate everything. So then Raghunandana was very happy. Gopinath ate, and he brought out the plates. And the mother said, so where's the prasad? He said, no, Gopinath ate everything. She began to wonder, what is this? So then Mukunda returned, and she said, you know, there's something wrong. I think our boy ate all the bhoga that was meant for Gopinath. So he said, what happened? He said, no, I requested Gopinath and he ate everything. So then Mukunda he wanted to test this. So he made some nice ladus. And he told Raghunandana, okay, you offer these ladus to Gopinath, right? And he hid himself, right? And again, Raghunandana went to offer the ladus, and he requested Gopinath to eat. And Gopinath began to eat one ladu. And then Mukunda looked inside, and he saw that Gopinath was actually eating this. And he became amazed. And as he looked, then Gopinath stopped eating. So he realized that his young son was a very advanced devotee of the Lord. So sometime later, at the Rath Yatra festival, the devotees from Bengal would come to Rath Yatra, and they would stay in Jagannath Puri with Lord Chaitanya and spend time. And then after the rainy season, they would go back to Bengal. So one time, after having attended Rath Yatra and being with Lord Chaitanya, the devotees were getting ready to go back to Bengal. So Lord Chaitanya, he asked Mukunda, he said, Mukunda, is it that you're the father of Raghunandan, or Raghunandan is a father of you? So Mukunda replied, he said, no, Raghunandan is the father of me. Because of Raghunandan's devotion, our whole family is Krishna conscious. So this is the glory of Raghunandana Thakura and Mukunda Das. Later on, Raghunandan passed away, and Mukunda Das was very concerned that because the Vedic system is that the son, after the father passes away, he performs the Shraddha ceremony, the Pindadan, right? So now his son had left before him. So he was thinking, when I leave, who will perform that ceremony, that Shraddha ceremony? So he was feeling somewhat unhappy about that. But Gopinath appeared to Mukunda and told him, you don't worry, I will perform your Shraddha ceremony. So even to this day, on the disappearance day of Mukunda, in a place called Agardweep, which is not so far from Mayapur, you can go by car there, the Gopinath Didi celebrates the Shraddha ceremony of Mukunda. And lakhs of people come on that day for darshan of Gopinath. It's a big festival. That Gopinath Didi is very famous. The king of Krishnanagar also takes care of that Didi for a certain period. He comes by boat, Gopinath, from that Agardweep to Krishnanagar on the Ganges. Okay? And he stays for some time in the palace of the king of Krishnanagar. So if you're ever in Mayapur, and you can have darshan of Gopinath, the Didi of Mukunda, and Raghunandana Thakura. So the other great devotee whose disappearance day we're observing today is Vamsidas Babaji. So Vamsidas Babaji was born in what is now Bangladesh, and at a young age he renounced everything. Although he was a householder, he renounced everything. And he lived in Navadvip, in Surabi Kunj, or Swarupganj, they call it. He was living there. And a very renounced person. But if you look at him to see him, there's just a couple of photographs. he has matted hair and a long beard. He never wore tilak. He only had one kopin that he wore, one loincloth. And he was very intimately connected with Krishna. He didn't perform sadhana, but he had deities. He had a Gaur Gadadhar and Lord Nityananda, 3 deities. He had Radha and Krishna and a Gopal deity, right? So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he respected him as a pure devotee of the Lord on a very elevated platform of devotional service, along with his own spiritual master, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, and Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. They all lived in Navadvip. So Vangsi Das, he had a kind of extraordinary relationship with Krishna that ordinary people could not understand. He never liked to associate with ordinary people. Never liked to associate. Sometimes some people would come and bring him something as a gift. But he would see that this person was materialistic. So he would tell them, take your gift and throw it in the Ganga. I'm not interested. And there's various stories about how he interacted with Krishna. Now, we can't understand that, neither can we imitate that. We have to be very careful. But we can hear about it for our own glorification. I'll just tell in synopsis, because there's a book written by Bhakti Vikas Swami that has a lot more details in it. This book is in the library, and if you ask Ananta Prabhu, he can find it and you can read it. Very interesting. But some of the, he used to travel sometimes, and he had some followers that would go with him. They'd set up a tent, and he would bring his deities with him. Once he went to Vrindavan, one time he went to Jagannath Puri, right? So they would travel, and he would always look for he liked to live under a, what do you call it? Vat tree, the banyan tree, right? He liked to live under the banyan tree, so he would have his tent set up under a banyan tree, because he considered it to be Vangsivat. And once he got under a banyan tree, then sometimes he would stay there for many, many days. Wouldn't leave. But anyway, he visited Vrindavan, and in there he was feeling great ecstasy. Sometimes he would be talking and no one could understand what he was saying. He was talking with his deities, right? And sometimes he would get angry. And there's one time in Navadvip, he had very few paraphernalias. He had 2 pots for cooking, 1 bell, and a few other things, not many things. But he had a habit, he never locked his bhajan kutir, he never locked it. He had a lock, but he never locked it. And they used to ask, because sometimes he would go to the Ganga to take bath, and some thief would come and steal his things. So they asked him, why you don't lock it? He said, listen, the proprietor of the whole universe is there. If he can't protect it, then what one lock will do? But sometimes people would steal from him. They stole his 2 pots while he was taking bath in the Ganga. So he came back, he was very angry, very upset, and he chastised Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda why he didn't watch. Now who can understand that, huh? Chastising Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, why you didn't watch the pots? Now you have to fast. I have no way I can cook for you now. So sure enough, next day somebody brought back 1 pot. And he said, this pot is the smaller pot. This pot belongs to Lord Nityananda. So today I can cook for Lord Nityananda, but Lord Chaitanya, you'll have to fast. And then the next day somebody brought the other pot. So like this, Bhaktivedanta Das Babaji Maharaj was on a very extraordinary platform of devotional service, not easy for us to understand. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur from the Mayapur mutt used to send grains and wood for cooking. But sometimes Bhaktisiddhanta Babaji would be in a mood when the brahmacharis brought something, he would tell them, chastise them, or tell them to go back with it, don't leave anything here. And they, not understanding his position and his mood of devotional service, they would become angry. So when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur understood this, he told one particular brahmachari to go every day, and don't go to his bhajan kutir, but stay a little bit back and put the things there and go back. And he explained, not because there's anything wrong with Bhaktisiddhanta Babaji Maharaj, but because you'll misunderstand his mood of devotional service. Therefore, don't intermingle with him. So, this is the exalted position of Bhaktisiddhanta Babaji Maharaj. Not easy for us to understand, but he had a very exalted relationship with Krishna, and Krishna reciprocated with him in many wonderful ways. And if you want to know more information about him, you can go to this book. It's in the library and you can read it. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions? Anybody want to add anything about Raghunandana Thakura or Bhaktisiddhanta Babaji Maharaj? No additions? No subtractions? Comments? Yes? Got the microphone for Mataji in the back?
I would like to know that if there is no preaching like Vamshi Das Babaji, he has no preaching, so what was the purpose for us in this material world?
Well, these elevated souls come down amongst our midst so that by coming in contact with them, we can become purified. We can become free from our conditioning, and we can become closer to Krishna. So these great souls, like Bhaktisiddhanta Babaji Maharaj, they specifically play that role so that we can become, by thinking about them, by hearing about them, that we can become purified. No one ever became a pure devotee except by the mercy of another pure devotee. So it's required for us in our purification to have their association by remembering them and hearing about them. Is that all right?
I have another question. It's in relationship to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. So I'm reading Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's biography.
Yeah.
So Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to print books. And when he went to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he gave him the instruction, you just sit down here and do bhajan. So why is this? How do we understand these two?
Well, he did that for a long time. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, on the instruction of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he sat in Mayapur and he chanted so many rounds daily. I forget the number, but large amount of rounds. He did that for a long time in a very austere condition. He had a small little grass hut and he was chanting his japa. And even that grass hut, it used to leak. The roof would leak in the rainy season. So he would keep an umbrella in one hand and keep chanting in his other hand. So he performed a lot of austerities, and he did that. And the reason Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj told him never to go to Calcutta is because Calcutta is Maya. And for a long time he stayed in Mayapur, but that at some point, because he knew the desire of Lord Chaitanya was to spread Krishna consciousness, he did ultimately go to Calcutta. But we have to understand that these exalted personalities like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, although they may be physically positioned in Calcutta, they're not really in Calcutta. They're in the spiritual realm. They're just like when Srila Prabhupada came to a temple, it's like the whole temple became a festival. The whole temple became enlightened just by his association. It's stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, although the Acharya, it appears like that he's managing the movement by giving classes and training the devotees and so many managerial things. But in his heart, he's serving Radha and Krishna in his particular relationship. So that's where these exalted personalities are. They are situated in another realm. But because they also are having the role of an acharya, they don't let the two intermingle very often. Sometimes, but not very often. They keep a check on their spiritual emotions so that they can guide the disciples and guide the devotees in the process of bhakti. So in one sense, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur never did go to Calcutta, in one sense. He always remained in Mayapur, in his consciousness. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he left, apparently, Radha Damodar Mandir to go to the west to preach. But within in his heart, he was always situated in Vrindavan. And that's what specifically marks a pure devotee of the Lord is that they are situated in that transcendental consciousness, and they influence others by being so situated. Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Oh. Well, this person is asking if we can sing the song Jai Anilo Premadana. Well, we can sing that, but the problem is that we need a songbook. We need to get it up on the board so that everybody can follow along. And that might take some time, so probably not this time, maybe next time. Yes? Mike, in the front.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. As you were mentioning now in the answer also to the question which was being asked, so...
And I hope I understood the question properly. It's kind of hard to hear with the rain rebounding off the pandal.
So, so while answering, you mentioned also that how Srila Prabhupada, he is an Acharya and he is taking ahead the whole movement. So it may look apparently that maybe due to some institution reasons, or because Prabhupada is running a movement in this day and age, he was working with different devotees, So it may look like apparently when we hear pastimes of these different acharyas, right? Today 2 of these acharyas disappearance day is there. So when it looks like apparently that the mood of these acharyas, who are later in our sampradaya, much before, it looks like apparently that mood has to be compromised in some way or the other, as you mentioned it, but Srila Prabhupada always had that mood in the heart. Although Srila Prabhupada managerially was trying to run the whole movement, so in our life also, how to understand this, whether this compromising mood, how we can understand this, because mood is also very important. At the same time...
well, it's very difficult to understand the mood of the devotees that you mentioned. From our position, it's difficult. You can't understand. Simply can try to hear and appreciate. But understand, it's way beyond our capacity. It's like a child in the first grade trying to understand, computer language. How will they understand? They're at 1 + 1. And computer language is, C language and Cobalt and bilineary, right? It's way beyond their capacity. So from where we are, we can try to hear about and appreciate. But understand is a whole different ball game, as they say. Right? It's not within our capacity to understand. Right? But if one renders faithfully service to the acharyas and tries to satisfy them, tries to please them, then one day, by their mercy, they will be enlightened with the ability to understand. So there's nothing in our devotional service that we can compare to their devotional service. Not possible, right? But we can try to follow in their footsteps and follow their instructions carefully. Try to understand their instructions and try to follow them. Therefore, we're so fortunate that Srila Prabhupada has given us his books that we can read, and he's given us his lectures that we can hear. And not only that, we have the lectures daily in the temple from the devotees on Srimad Bhagavatam, and in the evening on Bhagavad Gita. And if we carefully pay attention to this transcendental sound vibration, we'll become purified. Purified means that the unwanted desires that within the heart will become vanquished. We won't feel that they're so important. And the desire to serve Krishna will become magnified. And it'll overtake our hearts in course of time. Is that okay?
Also, because Srila Prabhupada in the whole conversations, letters and dealing with different devotees, although looks like a similar situation, but Prabhupada had dealt differently at different times. Looks like a similar situation apparently to us when we read in folio, other places. So
yeah, very differently.
So then how to understand that what is mood now of the Acharya, and then how to apply in our life then, because we can't then say that okay, this is the way to deal, because Prabhupada's example also we see that Prabhupada has dealt differently. So then how to apply then in our life from this Acharya's mood that...
Well, you have to understand there's time, place and circumstance, and everyone is different. Just like everyone's face is different. So everyone's relationship with Krishna is different. Everyone's relationship with one another is also different. So Srila Prabhupada could understand what each individual devotee needed for advancing in devotional service, and he dealt with them accordingly. It's like one time in Vrindavan, in Srila Prabhupada's quarters, two sannyasis came to meet Srila Prabhupada. And one of the sannyasis had been creating some politics in Vrindavan. I think maybe he wanted to be president or something, so he was complaining about the temple and the way things were going. And the other sannyasi was the temple president, right? And he was the temple president. He was always thinking how he wanted to go out and preach, go out and travel. But Prabhupada wanted him to stay there and manage the temple properly. So the one devotee, Prabhupada preached to him that your motto should be like the Indian railways, to always keep the wheels moving. Don't stay here. Go out and preach. So the other sannyasi was thinking, oh, now he's going to tell me to do the same thing. But he turned to him and he said, and you should never leave Vrindavan. So, according to time, place, and circumstance, Srila Prabhupada would give instructions. So therefore we have to understand the context of things also. We can't, highlight one instruction because... but the general instructions are there, and by following them, we can make progress in devotional service. Okay?